Hello and welcome. As India steps up its defences on the Ladakh region, it's also important to look at other areas in Kashmir which the army is having to look at very, very carefully indeed. There's the line of control with Pakistan. It's a line of control which has been active. There is an effort by Pakistan to put across terrorists on our side, and there have also been several encounters with terrorists over the last few months. We have a very special guest with us. Lieutenant General B.S. Raju is the Corps Commander of the 15 Corps in Srinagar. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. Sir, we are obviously in a situation where we are fully deployed on the Ladakh front, but is there a concern that Pakistan may be amassing soldiers or putting forces in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir at the same time?
Yeah, thank you firstly to have me on air, and firstly I must allay any such fears. As GOC of 15 Corps, I am definitely responsible for the valley, which takes care of both the line of control and the hinterland. As the situation is developing in Ladakh, we are very closely monitoring the situation along the line of control here across in the Kashmir Valley. I must tell you that as on today, I do not see any visible increase in the deployment or any major movement opposite my area of responsibility. But I must tell you that Pakistan definitely has upgraded his defensive posturing, which normally he does whenever there is a tension in the environment. Bottom line is we are prepared for any action.
And so by upgrading his defensive posturing, can you spell out what exactly it is that he's done?
Basically, he has brought in certain additional reserve formations, which he normally does to ensure that he is stable. And I do not see any other intention of Pakistan at this stage.
Okay, so that's an important clarification, that there isn't any sort of cohesive drive with China and Pakistan together at this stage, but you are mentioning that he's brought in some reserve formations. The biggest concern for you, for the army at this stage, would be the entire deployment. Your work it carries on as it always has. Now we've got a huge stretch of resources, obviously, in Ladakh as well. So in terms of how the army is dealing with this massive deployment across the region, do you sometimes feel stretched?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. Here I must state that 15 Corps is a very strong force. We have separate forces both for deployment along the line of control and for the hinterland.
Yeah.
So along the line of control, basically I'm responsible to ensure that the sanctity of the line of control is maintained, and it also takes care of the infiltration. And as far as the hinterland is concerned, we have separate troops which are responsible to maintain calm and peace and tranquility in the valley. In addition to these two forces, we also have reserve formations which are responsible for both offensive and defensive tasks. The issue is that we as military minds have to be prepared for all contingencies, and I must tell you that we are not going to allow any misadventure from across the LC as well as from any actors within the valley.
Sir, frequent encounters breaking out in Kashmir. There have been several now in the last few months since you've taken over as Corps Commander, soon after the snow started to melt. Is this the result of fresh infiltration or support on the ground, or both?
Yeah, what you said is true. I mean, if I were to quote some facts, in the last 6 months, we have almost had 47 operations in which close to 116 terrorists have been neutralized. And this is basically the result of solid synergy that is available in the environment. As far as the frequency of the operations are concerned, it is because starting from the highest level down to the soldier working on ground has a solid focus about bringing in peace in the valley. Mm-hmm. We are also getting good int, and the troops are on ground are doing relentless operations, and this is important. I must tell you that for one successful encounter, close to 25 operations are launched. And while we are doing this, we remain focused on terrorist leaders. And as far as infiltration that you mentioned, this year it has been relatively lower. And as a consequence, the number of terrorists that we are neutralizing, they are mostly locals. But of late, we have started to, take care of the Pakistani trained terrorists. And while we are doing this, I must also make a mention of that we are also targeting the overground workers. These people are the one who provide the logistics and the intelligence base for these terrorist entities. And here I must compliment the troops working on ground, the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the Central Reserve Police Force, the inter-agencies. You know, it is because all of these people are doing their job and doing it well, we are able to conduct clean operations with minimal damage to civilian property or civilian lives. And we hope to continue with these good operations.
Yeah. Sir, when it comes to protecting civilian lives, as you carry out these encounters, there was that one image of that little boy. He was on his grandfather's chest. His grandfather had sadly been killed in a particular encounter. Could you tell us a little bit about what exactly happened over there? We saw that wonderful photograph of the little boy being carried away. But what were the circumstances in which that poor grandfather lost his life?
No, firstly, any loss of life is sad.
Yeah.
And especially the loss of that young boy of a week back and the old man, 65-year-old man who died recently, it has definitely caught the attention. And you yourself just kind of told me that it was a nice photo. You know, these photographs, elicit emotions, elicit response from the environment. But it is important to understand why this has happened. You are aware that you only mentioned that we have had a string of successful operations.
Yes.
Now, the only way for the terrorists to get back at us was to engage us in populated areas. The two places where we had these civilian casualties, one was in Bijbehara and the second one, day before, was in Sopore. These are very, busy towns. And now with partial, lifting of the lockdown, there is a fair amount of population on the road. And as far as the terrorists are concerned, when they open fire in these areas, they're okay with some civilian casualties because they know that it catches attention. And for terrorists, it's the collateral damage. And I must tell you, in Sopore, they use the cover of a mosque. This is a new phenomena which has occurred. And also remember that in both these cases, we had CRPF fatalities and multiple injuries also. Now, talking of the last operation in Sopore, in the mosque, we recovered close to 60 rounds of empty cases. And as a military man, I must tell you that when these two terrorists opened fire on the CRPF, only the first 5 rounds from each of those two AKs would have been aimed, and that is what would have caused the CRPF casualties. The balance of 50 rounds were fired on the run because obviously the terrorists wanted to escape. And it is these 50 rounds are the ones which cause collateral damage on the civilians. And in my opinion, that is exactly what happened. And such kinds of casualties are completely avoidable. But unfortunately, they happen. And these are exploited by the environment. And they also provide a solid tool for propaganda.
Yeah.
And, but I must tell you that as far as the armed forces are concerned, we take extraordinary care to reduce such events.
Yeah.
Leave alone loss of civilian casualties. We don't want to kill even the militants. We give them an opportunity to surrender.
Yeah. General, there was some time back the Kupwara encounter where a special forces unit was very sadly killed in action. It was at a high altitude. It was a difficult operation. It was in snowbound areas, very deep snow, because we saw that in the pictures. You've had an opportunity now to look back at that. We did eliminate the terrorists on that occasion, but we lost a valuable squad, and extremely well-trained men over there in that operation. What are some of your thoughts? Is it a higher level of terrorist, better trained terrorists, perhaps a mix of people who've been trained by the military and others who are coming in? Or were there tactical mistakes that we made? What is your reflection on it a few months later?
Yeah, firstly, this is an old issue which has been discussed, but I'm happy that you've asked this question again. Firstly, I must tell you that the terrorists were not any better trained, but definitely they were better equipped. With the complicity of PAK, as you said, this was in the late winters. In the place of operations, we had close to 10 feet of snow. If you recollect, the people who had come in were in white ponchos, basically to camouflage themselves in the snow. No, as far as the operation per se is concerned, we detected them, we were able to intercept them, and then we killed them. The circumstances of the contact definitely were unique, and which led to our casualties. This has been analyzed in detail, and some lessons are learned. And I would only like to say that in every operation we learn lessons, good, bad, ugly. In fact, we learn more lessons from successful operations, because of all the operations that have taken place, most of the operations have been successful, but for one of this and one in which Colonel Ashutosh was martyred. So, as far as we are concerned, we will keep our guard up. The Pak desire to send in infiltrators is very high. I must tell you that the launch pads are full. There are close to 300 people who are waiting and who are waiting to infiltrate, and I must also tell you that my men are waiting to receive them. So the Pak desire to generate violence with these infiltrated terrorists is very high, and you must know that this is the primary tool of Pakistan to vitiate the environment in the valley. And when the valley is quiet, Pakistan makes a lot of noise. In fact, of late, you must have seen the shrillness with which Pakistan is making noise. When the valley is burning, Pakistan remains quiet. You know, this correlationship must be understood by everybody.
General, you mentioned Colonel Ashutosh Sharma. Again, an officer with an exemplary record. And besides anything else, and we don't talk about this enough, I think he was a wonderful human being. He was known to be that. Again, what happened over there? What were some of the tactical lessons or any lessons that you can share with us? Because this was another case where there was the loss of a few men, and some of them were exemplary in their past operations and role.
Yeah, firstly, I think what you mentioned in the beginning is very important. He was a great human being. You know, I have made at least 3 trips to Handwara. That is the place from where he operated from. And I have met any number of people who talk in praise of this officer. And yes, we do miss him. As far as lessons learned, in fact, as I was mentioning in the previous question, that we learn lessons all the time. And each situation is different, each operation is different, lessons learned are different. As I said, we have had almost 47 operations in which we have killed 116 terrorists. And can you believe that this is the only operation in which we have lost a man in the hinterland? So, in these 47 operations, we have had one operation which has gone wrong. And in the cycle of violence, we will always meet this, time when the stars don't align, that we get into a situation where we buy casualties.
Yep.
As far as the decisions taken by commanders on ground are concerned, he's basing his decisions based on what he's seeing. He's the senior most man on the ground at that particular time. And we as senior commanders, we respect that decision. And as far as I'm concerned, Colonel Ashutosh and his team were a brave man. They kind of sacrificed their life in the line of duty.
Yeah.
And also remember that fighting in built-up areas is a very complex and tricky operation. Yeah. But we are doing well. You are aware of the intensity of operations in South Kashmir, where every 3 out of 4 operations are in built-up areas. And I must tell you that our troops are well-trained and better equipped than ever before. So we will continue to do our operations in the most professional manner with minimum inconvenience to the public.
General, the Hizbul Mujahideen, we were able to eliminate their top terrorist, Naiku. Does this mean that the group has been eliminated in Kashmir? Does it cease to function as a terrorist group per se?
Not really. Definitely neutralization of Riaz Naiku was important. He was an old hand. He had a charisma. He had the capacity to recruit. In my understanding, his loss would be felt by the HM, and we can see it on ground. In fact, not only HM, even the other groups will miss him. Just remember that Hizbul Mujahideen is a mother organization. And this is the one which provides logistics and intelligence support to the other groups. While we have neutralized him, I must tell you that we are also equally looking at targeting the leadership, which we have done, of both LET and Jaish. So the targeting of the Jaish, I mean, the terrorist leadership will continue. We believe that in the long run, neutralization of the terrorist leadership will reduce violence in the environment. And the second important corollary, if I can put it, is that it will also reduce recruitment. And reduction of recruitment is important to us.
Yeah.
I must tell you that we are working very hard on this issue of recruitment because this is important to make change in the valley.
Yeah.
On daily basis, my commanders, COs are speaking with the families. We are trying to identify people who are on the edge to get him back. We have been successful on many occasions. Even once they have joined, we continue to reach out to the families where we have had limited success. And I must also make a mention here that we also offer surrender in every operation. This is one place where we have not been very successful. We are working on it, and I hope to see some success on this front.
Yeah. General, what about ISIS? We hear occasional reports of ISIS terror in Jammu and Kashmir. Does this represent a full-blown terror threat in your estimation of the same category as, say, the Hizbul once did or the Lashkar continues to do?
In fact, I've been around in the valley for a few years, and I've been hearing the threat from the ISJK or Al-Qaeda. It's often discussed. While there is a desire of these groups wanting to take a foothold, I must tell you it has not happened. For example, the Ansar Ghazwatul Hind, which was led by that famous Zakir Musa, which is one such group, has largely been decimated. This year itself, we have neutralized 7. I think a few of their cadres are left. ISJK, we have neutralized close to 9 terrorists. In my opinion, the medieval ideology of these groups is something which is not liked by the Kashmiris. So I do not expect any traction for these groups in the near future.
That's really important, sir. So one of the worrying, one of the areas of concern, and we've seen it many years in the past, then it didn't really happen, then it happened with Pulwama, was IEDs on vehicles, and that obviously requires fantastic intelligence on the ground to be able to pinpoint that sort of a threat. Again, has there been a concerted effort at thinking through the nature of this threat post-Pulwama and to be able to deal with it on a regular basis?
Yeah, this is important in the background of 2 IEDs which today itself we recovered, and with very limited damage to our men or property. This issue of vehicle-borne IED will always remain a cause of concern. I mean, these IEDs generate a lot of noise, and also it causes a lot of casualties to our troops.
Yeah.
I must tell you that all security agencies are alive to this threat, and whatever necessary actions are being taken. In fact, just a few weeks back, if I recollect, in South Kashmir, we were able to detect and explode one car loaded with explosives. Now, this particular kind of act is the speciality of Pak-trained JEM.
Right.
If you recollect, the Pulwama was done by a JEM operative.
Yes.
And so we are looking at JEM as one of the agency which needs to be targeted, both the cadres as well as the leadership.
Yeah.
In addition to this, we are also looking very closely at the ecosystem which provides this explosives, whether it is the works going on in the tunnels or in the quarries. So taking help of the civil administration, the police, we have been able to tighten that system substantially. That remains a challenge. And another important thing as far as the IEDs are concerned, I must tell you that whenever these events take place, Pak is happy because, as a consequence of these, we get into more restrictive modes on the roads, and we start checking people more, and that, kind of inconveniences the public, and that generates some agitation, and that is the end state which Pakistan is always looking at.
Yeah.
So to reduce this cycle of violence and protests, we need to take care of the IEDs. We want the Kashmiri Awam to understand this design of Pakistan and design of terrorist groups like Jaish and LET, and come forward and help us in providing information wherever such plans are being hatched or vehicles are parked without knowledge. I definitely would like to make an appeal to the public that it is in their long-term interest that these are neutralized in time.
Yeah. General, one final question to you. Then this is something the Army has been doing for a while. If there are terror attacks on our soil, we will hit the Pakistanis hard. Whether it's the line of control or further away, that is your choice. And I say this because there was that exemplary drone footage some time back of artillery strikes and very, very specific strikes which had taken place. Is that the larger message over here? That if you try to hit us, we will hit back and hit back very hard and continue to do so?
I think you asked the question and answered it very well.
I think yourself. I did, but go ahead, General.
But we understand the Pak designs. His design to infiltrate terrorists is high, and he typically uses bad weather and ceasefire violations as the opportune time for infiltration. And whenever this has happened, we have come back heavily, and our strikes are punitive in nature. While Pak casualties typically don't get that much of publicity, but we have enough electronic, interceptions to suggest the kind of damage we are able to inflict on him. And I think the message is going down. And as a consequence, as I said in the beginning of the interview, that the number of infiltrations have marginally reduced. But we as the Indian Army and the Chinnar Corps will continue to maintain our guard up. We will look for any signs of misadventure, and if there are any indications which need a response, our response will be hard and quick.
General Raju, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for this candid interview and discussing the nature of the threat in your area of responsibility, the line of control, the hinterland and the heartland. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.